Hi, and welcome back to the next recording. This is Anime again from Accelerated Excellence. So we've gone through the whole reticular activating system, why beliefs are so important, how your thoughts influence your reality and your goals and your outcomes. And today I want to talk a little bit about what's the book of the rules that your unconscious mind uses to help and assist you to create those outcomes and to actually focus on a specific outcome. So I want to become very, very clear. Have you thought about what you wanted to create, especially in the fact that our lockdown has been extended? So it gives us more time. So let's get very specific and let's get very clear and about what it is that you want in your future and how your mind can help and assist you creating that success. So I'm going to go through a few concepts of some of the basic rules. There's about 24 of them. I'm just going to talk about 8. And then I'll talk about 2 specifically in light of the goals and outcomes today. So some of the rules, the book of rules that the unconscious mind follows, it's important for you to know this because it's going to assist you in understanding why sometimes your goals don't come to fruition and what would make it easier for you to get there. Right, so firstly, your mind enjoys serving. It just needs clear orders to follow. So when we are thinking about, yes, I'd like that outcome, and I have doubts that come up, those are all instructions, those are all orders. So the more clear we are, the more specific that we are, the less we pay attention to those doubts. And it's like almost sitting in the restaurant and asking the waiter, this is what I want, and it delivers that slip to the kitchen, to the chef to produce. You don't run with the waiter to the chef to double check that everything's in order and that he got your instruction clear. And when you're asking him for coffee or tea or wine or cool drink or whatever it is, you don't run with the waiter to make sure that he brings you exactly what you want. You place the order and you let it go. So this is what I want you to focus on. When you focus about that outcomes, don't worry about the how. The more you focus on what it is you want and the less focus you spend on how you think you need to get there and what do you think you need to do to get there, the more your mind's going to focus on just one thing instead of. So it just needs those orders very clear, very crisp, very precise, and it knows exactly what to do. So I want you to think of your conscious mind as your goal setter and your unconscious mind as your goal getter. So we place the order and we walk away. So let's get very, very specific, very clear, because it loves following those instructions. We just need to know what it is that we're looking for. So your unconscious mind also controls and maintains all of your perceptions and all of your behavior. So all of those beliefs and values that we've discussed in the previous videos, they are run by the unconscious mind. Call it the holder of patterns. So all of those patterns that's been installed is being looked after by the unconscious mind. It's not a conscious thought that you carry every single day. You're not consciously aware of them. They are running on autopilot in the unconscious. So all of that is being controlled by the unconscious, which is why it is so important. In the previous video, we spoke about reading those desire statements every day, twice a day if you can, so you can imprint the beliefs that support your outcomes. Okay. Your mind also needs repetition to install a habit. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of detail around that. I've mentioned it before. Why it needs repetition is purely because of the electrical flow and the electrical current in the brain. So thoughts are electrical currents, neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more that we think about something, the more we do something, the more we focus on something, the more electrically we charge that neurological connection that's being built in the brain. So when you think of something that is painful, if you have a significant painful event that takes place, there's a lot of electrical charge that goes through that. So you can instantaneously create a new connection in the mind or in the brain. So if you think about touching a hot stove, instantaneously, I'm not going to do that again. Touch it 21 times to know that it's not a good idea to do that. But when you're learning a new skill, a new habit, that's why it needs repetition, because of the low voltage that's going through the neuro pathway that's being built. So the more you focus on it, the more it connects electrically, and the more the chemistry binds that new pathway in the brain. So it needs that repetition for a habit to be installed, right? So again, it also functions as the best whole integrated unit. So the more congruent I am, the more I'm focused, the more clear I am, the more every part of my being agrees with that, the quicker and more decisive I will be, the quicker I'll take action. So if one part of me feels like this, another part of me feels like that, that indecisiveness, that incongruency will influence the speed that you manifest your goals and your results. So the more whole and agreeable I am with my outcome, the more the speed will be there to support the manifestation of that goal a lot quicker, right? So all of what we've covered in the first couple of videos is to allow for congruency, is to allow for that wholeness, to learn what you need to learn from past challenges, so that you can take those learnings with you as resources, and that can get you more congruent and take action a lot quicker. So we function best when we are whole and integrated. Your unconscious mind is symbolic. You know, if I had to say to you, think of your favorite person, your mind will pop up a little picture. It might be a photograph, it might be a video, it might be black and white, it might be color. So however your mind records it, it formats that memory in a certain way, and it uses a picture. So it uses and responds to pictures. Now, this is what we're going to talk about today in terms of goals. Why it's so important? Because the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So when you imagine yourself achieving that outcome as if it is now, your body starts actually feeling like, oh my gosh, that feels great. You know, I can imagine when I'm there, just how much peace I would experience and all those type of things. So what your body is actually experiencing is in the now, but it was just a memory, just something you thought about. So very important to use and work with these symbols. Takes everything personal. So your mind takes everything personal. That's why when the guys are watching a rugby game or a football game, they're scrumming with the team or they're kicking the ball as well, even though they're sitting on the couch. Or girls, that's why you're crying when you're watching a sad movie. Your mind's taking it personal, things that's happening to you. That's the reason why I don't watch news, because I don't want to take that personal. It works on the principle of the least effort. So if you think about the connections in your brain, we've mentioned this before in a previous recording. If your problem or your doubt is like a 5-lane highway, that's the path of least resistance. If you're building a new habit, it's like a little footpath. It's weak and fragile. It needs traffic for it to become your new 5-lane highway. That's why it needs a repetition, because it then becomes stronger. And then the one that is the strongest is going to be your go-to. So whenever stress happens or something new challenging in your environment approaches you, the path of least resistance, the one with the least effort, is what your mind's going to follow. So that's why it's so important to focus on what you want in order for your mind to take that as your new path, the one that is the least effort. Okay. And then very, very important, I think this is a useful tip to know, especially if you are parents sitting at home with the kids. Your unconscious mind doesn't process negatives directly. So what does that mean? If I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, do you have a picture in your mind of a pink elephant? And for even those that saying, no, I don't, for a fleeting second, your mind had to think of it first in order for you to be able to change it and take it away. So the moment you say the word don't or won't or shouldn't, what is left in the sentence is actually the focus. So when parents say to their kids, don't run, you're going to spill, what do? That's right, they run and spill. The don't, the negation, the negative gets deleted, doesn't get processed directly, and so the rest of the sentence becomes the focus, run and spill. That's why it's so important to focus on what you want and not what you don't want, because it just gets all of the attention, right? So those are the major 8 ones that I'm going to cover in the next couple of videos. In terms of setting outcomes, I'm going to talk to you about symbolic, and that it enjoys easy and effortless orders to follow. So uses these symbols to communicate. So let's think about some outcomes. I want you to think about, what do you want to achieve? So how do we apply this, right? So what is the outcome? What is the goal that you want to achieve? I'm sure there's a lot of people that's out there concerned about their finances in terms of not working, no work, no pay type of rule, not having the income and having to reinvent themselves, their businesses, their careers in order to still be able to financially look after themselves. So what is your ideal? What is the outcome? What is it that you want to work towards? And so focus on that, and then ask yourself, how will you know that you've achieved that? How will you know that you're financially stable if that is the goal that you're working on? And have a look at, if that's the outcome, where are you in relation to that now? So, you know, financial comfort, if that's the focus. I'm going on some of the design statements where there was fear of failure and what we wanted was success instead. So if the goal is to be successful, what does that mean to you specifically? Break it down into details. What does success mean to you? Because everybody has their own meaning attached to that word. What does it mean to you? How would you know that you've achieved success? What does success symbolize to you? And where are you in relation to that? So let's say it's your version of what you think success means is 10 out of 10. Where are you in relation to that? Are you at a 2? Are you at a 4? And be honest. You don't have to sugarcoat it for yourself, because you want to measure it. Once you start taking these steps, it's like a little snapshot of where I am now. And when we start taking these steps and start taking action and the results start showing up, where am I in relation to that goal now? So that you can measure your progress. And, you know, nothing like noticing some changes and then getting motivated by those changes, because then it just builds up the energy to do more, right? So and then let's pull in those senses. Remember, now your mind filters all of the outside information through your senses. So if you were to focus on the word success and what it means to you, whether it is in your career, in your personal, in your relationships, in your health, whatever it is, if you were to focus on what success means to you, and wherever you're at it now, out of 10, what would you see and hear and feel when you have that? So imagine you are already there. What would life look like? What would it sound like? What would you hear around you? Would people say something to you? Would you say something to yourself? What would it feel like to achieve that level of success? So what would it feel like when you achieve that? So make a note of the visual. What would you see? What do you look like as an individual? So when you see yourself in that successful goal achieved, what do you look like? What do you sound like? You know, if you were to observe yourself and watch it like a little movie clip, if you look at yourself in the future, having achieved that goal, what is it that you think you're saying to yourself? You know, and what is it that you would have to have as an awareness inside for you to be in that level of success? So focus on that outcome, write down what you would see, what you would hear, what you would feel. And lastly, for this exercise, is how would you know that you've achieved it? What's going to get your attention to bring to your awareness that you actually did achieve this? Because sometimes, you know, we set out these, I'd like to have that, and I'd like to experience that, and I want to achieve that. And then life carries on, and then a couple of years later, you look back and go, you know what, I actually did that. I actually did achieve it, but you had no awareness at the time. And so what is it that needs to get your attention for you to recognize that you've achieved your goal, right? So how would you be convinced? How would you know? So write those down. The first one is, what specifically do you want? So be very clear about what it is that you want, that it represents to you. Where are you now in relation to that? What would you see, hear, and feel when you have that? And when you notice that your mind starts creating that picture of you having achieved that, can you feel it in your body now, as if you're already there? And that picture is what I would like you to focus on. It's not just about writing down your goals and focusing on them from that point of view. It's really trying to get into that feeling space as if you're already there. Because let's call that the future version. That's the future version of you. But that version of you will only get there if this version of you starts practicing. And how do we start that practice? Is by imagining and using those symbols so that the mind thinks it's real already now. And then you already start behaving in a way that you would have behaved if you were there. Now, how do you know? You won't know. But that version of you won't exist if this version of you doesn't start practicing, right? So imagine how you would answer your phone. How would you handle stress? How would you handle obstacles? Any of those things if you were to already be in that place. And think and act and behave as if you're already there as best you can within the space that you find yourself in now. Think and act and behave as if you're already there. And that's how you'll get there. So I usually say to my clients, when I give them this as a task, and they say, you know what, in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to come back to me and say, I'm not pretending anymore. It actually feels natural, and it actually feels like I am already that person. And it's not getting to an outcome, it's who we become while getting there. So focus on your outcome, be specific. Where are you now in relation to that so you can measure it? What will you see, hear, and feel when you have that? And how will you know that you've achieved it? Those are the 4 things I want you to focus on in terms of your outcome. And then I'm going to talk about the rest of the book of rules that your unconscious mind follows and why those certain things are important and how they will influence you achieving your goals. Okay, great. So I hope that was useful, and sending you much love like always, and be focused on the outcomes instead of the obstacles. And see you in the next recording.